Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode of Untie Podcast series. And on this episode, we are thrilled to have Mark Gabel, who is CEO of one of our Mongolian biggest conglomerates, MSM Group. And thanks for joining us, Mark.
Very happy to be here. Thank you, BYAMBA.
Thank you. And I'd like to start the question from the, as a professional and as a leader, 20 plus years, working both in emerging and developed markets, why you do what you do here in Mongolia?
So, for me, Mongolia is a very special place because despite its fast development, you can still shape and influence things. You know, in places like Hong Kong, Singapore, Shanghai, things are kind of set. Yes, there is development, but on a much smaller scale. And in Mongolia, I find the young talents are very entrepreneurial. They have a lot of business ideas, and technology is used very fast, very widely. And I'm somebody who travels the whole world, and I love to see things that work well in Australia or in America or in Europe, and to bring those products or services to Mongolia, to be one of the first ones. And then customers get excited, and the company with that can then also grow and develop. So I guess for me, Mongolia is a place where you can still, when you bring new things to the market, have a successful business. You can, with this, also then increase the knowledge and know-how of the people. So for example, if we bring the latest driver guidance system, so for some of the mining haulage, the driver concentrates and tries to drive safely with the copper concentrate and so on. But mistakes sometimes can happen, and there are technology solutions available where you have radars that measure the distance and warn the driver before something happens.
Absolutely, yeah.
So this kind of new technologies we bring to the market to help our customers to operate more safe, more efficient. But that also means our MSM employees need to be trained on this technology. So in a way, we enhance the entire ecosystem from the customer, from the supplier, from our own employees, and raise the bar to the latest standards. And that's what makes it exciting to do business here. And I find again that the Mongolian business environment allows to bring new things, to try new things, and our workforce is very open to learn and eager to learn, and that's what makes it rewarding and exciting.
Nice. Yeah, going off of that point right away, what's the latest news with MSM? What's the latest, biggest news that you guys have? We know that Mercedes, you've launched the showroom. Would that be the latest that's going on? I'm sure every single day you guys have something new going on, but...
Well, I personally know that MSM just opened up the new liquor shop, right? At the Golden Boot, the Sour, it's called.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I would say across our group, whether automotive, industrial, or our beverage business, we always bring new things. So on the automotive side, I would say the new showroom investment was done because our customers travel the world, and Mercedes has a certain standard. And it's not about the facility, it's about how the customer feels, getting a feel of luxury and excellent service. And I think it was just time to enhance the customer experience. And obviously the Mercedes customers are the most affluent customers in the country. And I think they expected, when they spend so much money on a new car, that experience of going to the showroom, understanding what's available. And so we did this investment to to comply with the global Mercedes standard. And this is actually the latest standard. So even in Europe, some dealerships are not at this level of what we have here. And I would say on the beverage side, you mentioned the sour liquor store. So also here we were looking at doing something different. There are so many companies who sell wine and spirits, but we recognized actually there is not one place where you get everything from a nice beer to a nice wine to high-end spirits. So in our sour liquor store, we not just sell MSM products, we actually sell also competitor products. So it's the biggest liquor store in country, but it's really a place where everybody will find something. And that's what makes that place special. And we will actually open up a second sour liquor store soon, not too far from here, close to Sukbada Square. And I think with this kind of concept, we are in line also with the younger consumers. We find that things change in Mongolia quite quickly. Historically, customers would go straight to spirits. But younger generation, they enjoy first a cocktail, imported beer, then some wine, and maybe later some spirits. And so we constantly also need to adapt what we offer to what our customers actually want. And we recently brought also White Claw, hard seltzer. So that replaced in North America actually beer, because the younger Americans want to drink things that have less calories, supposedly more healthy. So we were the first ones who brought in White Claw, so that's the world leader. And I think also that is in a way in line with the younger generation, want to try something different. And I think this is really kind of the business model of MSM. We have our core automotive, industrial and beverage business, but we never just continue to do what we do. I spend a lot of time listening to customers, and we constantly try to evolve and bring products and services that help our customers and where our customers see value in.
How did you decide to go into the beverage? Because we know MSM and Mercedes, and you have Jeep and Ram, I think.
We have Ford. Also BYD. We were the first. BYD, we were the first ones who brought in electric cars. Yeah.
We have to talk about that as well. But how did the MSM transition into beverage?
No, so actually we have done the beverage business also for over a decade now, but it's run under a different name called Betastar, MSM Betastar. And look, this is quite different to the other two business units. In automotive and industrial, you sell a piece of car, piece of equipment, and you provide service and parts. Gotcha. And beverage is basically distribution, a very different business model. And I would say, looking at each of these businesses, mining is of course related to commodity prices. So when prices are high, business is good. But when prices tank, then it hurts the business, and you also sometimes have to lay off people and right size your organization. Yeah. So industrial is kind of more cyclical, and I would say automotive, depending of course on the products. But beverage is something I would say, regardless of the cycle, people drink in good and in bad times, maybe in bad times even more. And I think for a business to be really sustainable, you need to diversify. You cannot put all eggs in one basket. If some external, and there is always something nobody thought of that somehow impacts you. And if you have only one thing and it's impacted very badly, then that means you're gone. And MSM has been around now for 25 years. So we celebrated our quarter century anniversary last year, and MSM will be around for the next 75 and even longer years. But we can only do that by constantly reinventing ourselves.
And adapting, right?
And for me, as the group CEO, I spend a third of my time on kind of the day-to-day business. I spend a third of my time with our partners, because how successful we are here also depends how much support we get from our international partners. And Mongolia is not the biggest market for many of our partners. So unless I see them and advocate about the opportunities in Mongolia, we don't get the best commercial and technical support. And the other third, I spend forward-looking. So I think as a CEO, you should not just look at today. It's your job to kind of prepare the company always for the future. And that's also maybe why our growth has been quite strong over the last few years, because we have been always forward-looking. We anticipated certain things, or we brought new things into the market that others haven't thought of yet. And we will continue to do that. And that's not always easy, and it's not always right. Sometimes also we bring things and it doesn't work out as planned. But I think that's also part of any organization. You have to try and also be prepared sometimes to make a mistake.
Yeah, sure. I want to dig deep into like a personal background of Mark. And the MSM has been founded in 1998, right? And as you mentioned, it's been already 25 years. And I know from Mark's professional CV that Mark's first joined MSM in 2005. Correct? And Mark has been in Mongolia for 5-6 years, and then there's a gap, and then he came back. And I wanted to ask, what's the major change you've seen before you were in Mongolia and then coming back to Mongolia?
Yeah, thanks for asking this. I still remember, even before I started working with MSM, actually, I was asked by Mercedes. I was working with Mercedes in Korea back then to audit the Mercedes dealer MSM in Mongolia. And so I did that. And then I gave back then Lawrence and David a long list of what they need to improve.
Founders of MSM.
Yes. And I still remember then a week later after my visit, I got the call and Lawrence asked, "So you gave us this long list what we should do better, but what about you actually implement these improvements and you join our company?" Back then I took the big decision to leave Mercedes after over 11 years. And some of my colleagues said, "You are crazy, you have a job for life in one of the most recognized brands in the world." But I always liked new challenges and being out of my comfort zone. And I would say back then, coming from Korea, having worked at Mercedes, in 2005, I got a lot of media attention. So whenever we, I think there was the first Maybach coming to Mongolia, and then there was a video interview and so on, and people were generally interested to what's happening. So there was a lot of attention. And we had in our workshop a cooperation with the Technical University, and there were some internship programs happening. And I could just see these very young Mongolians wanted to become a technician, and you see the interest, and they want to learn, and it was so nice to share your knowledge. And I felt, okay, it's actually quite easy to come from a developed place to a emerging place. It's actually quite easy to come from a big company to a small company, because in a big company you have your processes, everything is structured and organized. In a small company you don't have that. Then you can use your knowledge and put a structure in place. So also back then, most companies were just starting to make some money. So I felt, or I recognized, many companies did not focus on their core business. So Apu, for example, had their beer and vodka brewery, but they still sometimes tried to fix like a backup generator themselves. And then when they couldn't fix it, then we were asked to support. And fast forward now, I would say today most larger companies focus on their core business. And anything else, the suppliers need to do. And that just shows the development. So there is more money available to invest into the right things. And customers also expect them from the business partner. You should know, especially technical competence should be available. So today I would say technical expertise is at a much higher level than it ever been. And companies like us invest a lot of money in training. So we have almost every month technicians flying overseas to get practical and classroom trainings on the latest technology. I mean, we recently on a BYD had to change the whole battery. Oh, wow. And you know, this is high voltage. And I think this has not been done in Mongolia ever before, taking a full electric car battery out. It's quite heavy, it's 1 ton, so you need a forklift. And you know, I'm quite proud. I mean, we did this without any help from the manufacturer. We sent our people for training and they kind of knew, okay, these are the steps, because you also need to take some safety precaution. And I think this is really something I have not seen anywhere else. So sometimes I also travel to Nepal or Cambodia, and they also have a young population and they are also interested to learn and grow. But I do find that the Mongolian workforce is much more adaptable and picks up things much faster. So therefore Mongolia is also, I sometimes look at GDP per capita. So I still remember in 2005 it was less than $1,000 per person on average, and today is over 5,000, and that's actually higher than India on average. So it just shows you how fast Mongolia has actually grown and developed. And I do believe soon, in the next 4 or 5 years, maybe we will be at 8,000-9,000. Prices will continue to rise, people will continue to earn more money, living standard will rise. So I think Mongolia is not a frontier emerging market anymore, but I would say really getting quite fast to a more developed market already.
Absolutely. Also, how old were you when you came to Mongolia? 2005?
So now I'm 46. Yeah. So very young.
Very young, right? Yeah.
Yes, but see, I left school early and I did my MBA and so on beside working. So I did not the traditional school, university, and then enter the workforce. So I started working in the age of 16, 17 already. And then I did my master's beside that. And it helped me quite a bit, because then you can apply the theoretical knowledge immediately more into the practical knowledge. Sure. And no school tells you how to manage difficult employee situations. You know, certain things you have to learn firsthand.
Yeah, good to hear from MSM CEO that the Mongolian market and how it's getting sophisticated throughout the years, right? And I'm very curious that, like, you know, in very young age, in late 20s, you came to Mongolia and decided to work in here. Must be a very good relationship with the founders of MSM that convinced you to stay in here, and your passion, of course, right? And Mark, do you think university knowledge, right? And as you said, what's your opinion on the university degrees nowadays? Like in traditional,
very controversial question. Yeah, it's a very nice one. Yeah.
Well, so first of all, I did not always immediately enjoy being here. I still remember I just arrived, and then I was supposed to travel to Tavantolgoy. So I had a lot of travel, and I had mutton soup for breakfast, Sivan for lunch, and boots for dinner. And
you remember all that?
So, and I remember the car broke down, and then I had to kind of fix it, and I was smelling of diesel, and then it was very cold. What am I doing? But I kind of enjoyed that. But to your question on the education part, So I have actually 3 young children, 6, 8, and 10 years old. And my wife is Asian, Singaporean, and her belief is, academics are very, very important. That gives you the foundation to be successful later in life. And I differ a bit. I believe our world is changing very, very rapidly. And the best what we can do for our children to be prepared for the future is actually that they are flexible. So what I did, going out of your comfort zone, going to a new country, I think that helps you to be more flexible and adaptable. And I think that's very, very important in a changing world, to be flexible and adaptable. More important than maybe just grades.
Absolutely.
And the other one I would say is being curious, being interested in new things. So I think you need to find a balance of university education, that give you some basic theoretical understanding of how things work, but you also need the practical part. And I, for myself, I learn the most by doing and by talking about things rather than just reading a book. Of course, everybody has a different learning style, but I believe universities are also not adapting fast enough to the business world we are in today. Just look at the university professors. When you talk with them, their reference point is from their wealth of experience. But fact is, the world has changed in the last 10 years more than most probably in the last 100. So many things that used to be relevant in the past are not so relevant anymore. I mean, we went through a pandemic. Absolutely. Now we are in a time where there is uncertainties, geopolitical, and so there are so many things that are requiring adaptability and change and new thinking.
Absolutely. The reason I asked this question is in 2005, right? Mongolia has transitioned from social regime to a free market. And it was very recent at that time. And Mark at that time arrived in Mongolia, and that time labor market was very different to compare to nowadays, right? And thanks for sharing all this, and it's very important for our people who's watching. And another one is, Mark, what are the opportunities beyond the challenges here in Mongolia? As you mentioned, you've seen a lot of opportunities here in Mongolia, and you've seen that in sophisticated developed markets, it takes a lot of time to build up new things, but in Mongolia, it's vice versa, which is very fast developing. And what are the opportunities beyond the challenges here in Mongolia?
Well, I think Mongolia is good friends with its neighbors, but also with countries further away. So what Mongolia does very, very well is keeping good relationships, not depending on just one or two, but on many friends, on many supporters. I believe the same applies for business. On one hand, it's a still growing market. On the other hand, there's a big few companies that shape a lot. So for me, Mongolia is sometimes like a village, and it's important in the village to have more friends than enemies. And I think so keeping good relationships in the business community, and how do you maintain good relationships is by also deliver what you promise. So I think in today's environment in Mongolia, you don't get away by promising a customer, we will do this and this and this for you. And if you don't, it not just destroys the relationship with this customer, but this customer will talk with others. So bad news usually spread faster than good news. So I truly believe to be long-term successful in Mongolia, you have to listen to your customers, understand their issues, provide a solution to their issues, and then you have to deliver on what you promise. And then actually Mongolia is a fantastic place to do business.
Awesome. Yeah, we've dived straight into the business.
Too much.
We want to know, how did Mark start? Your younger Mark, where'd you go to university? Where'd you live? Where are you from? I think that'd be interesting. And then you talked about Mercedes. Was that your first occupation, and so on? If you can discuss that.
Sure. So my father actually worked all his life for Mercedes. And so as a young boy, he would bring me to the Mercedes dealership. And so I was kind of exposed to this kind of work environment. And so my dream was, I also, like my dad, want to work at a Mercedes dealership. And so that took place. And then I had the opportunity to work for Mercedes also all over Germany, and took on a more managerial role. My upbringing was in a small village, actually, in Germany, outside Frankfurt. So small that sometimes I would come home and our TV is gone. And then there's just a note from the neighbor, Mark, we took your TV, we'll bring it back tonight. So that's how
that's small, huh?
250 people, everybody knew each other, everybody helps each other. And I think actually this upbringing in this kind of very, very close, small community has helped me understanding also a bit better how things run in Mongolia. You know, in big cities, some people don't even know their neighbor. Everybody lives their own life. And I was always amazed, in the countryside you have to help each other to survive. Everybody is very hospitable, and so I think coming from this more countryside environment has helped me to cope with Mongolia a bit better.
What was the university you went to?
Yeah, so I went to University of Hanover, but that was actually paid by Mercedes. So Mercedes saw me as a talent, and so Mercedes basically paid for that higher education while I was working as a technician in this dealership. So I started off as a technician, and I think also that is helpful today. I can easily talk with a technician in a technical language, but I can also talk with the president. So I have learned to adapt the communication style to the environment. But this kind of, let's say, humble beginning, down to earth, putting your sleeves, getting your hands really dirty, has helped me to also establish a certain culture in the company where it's about, not so much about hierarchy, but it's about we work together towards a common goal. So you will see me at work, not so much in my office, but very much in the workshop, in our chemical plant. I like to listen to people. So everybody has some connection also to higher management if there is. Of course, there's sometimes also a check. What my direct manager tell me and what their people tell me might be different. So then I can double check a bit. But I of course follow the hierarchy. But everybody in the company can talk, and if there is an issue or if a truck is broken down and something needs to be pushed, then you will also see me helping the technicians pushing it into the workshop. That's something I enjoy, and I also usually drive the products that we sell. So I truly believe you have to have passion for what you do, and sometimes for new joiners we organize this as a company induction. Then I say, bring a big tractor. So then we let a young girl sit in this huge tractor, and so I think that's important, having emotional connection to our business, to our company.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key successes these big CEOs have, right? When we listen to Elon Musk, when he first launched Tesla as well, he was talking about how he used to stay in the factory for the whole time, and he just lived in the factory. So I think that's when you can tell the CEO is doing good, because you know what's exactly going on the field rather than just checking emails, right? Okay. Well, going back, what was your major on?
Automotive technology, actually. Okay. Yeah. So my master is in automotive technology. So my background is very much automotive, but I learned the industrial business, which is in a way a bit similar. You sell something and then you have a service and parts business. The beverage business, I only got to know the past 6 years more. It's a very different business than automotive and industrial, but it's also something close where you talk with bar owners. So what I really enjoy about the job is you meet people. It's the automotive customer or the mine owner or the bar owner. Everybody has a story to tell, and there's something to learn from everyone. And I think that's the beauty of life, to be able to learn. So for me, it's not a job actually. I really enjoy what I do. It's something I don't consider a job.
And I feel, Mark, you're a very curious person, and I wanted to ask, like, were you been always like this from the childhood? What was your personality like, and how did it evolve throughout the time? And what would be the most important skill set that you have acquired from all this? It can be from anything, right? From your parents, or from your family, or from working with Mercedes people. What was it like?
Yeah, so my personality profile, of course there are many systems how to use it, but one is I'm very effective in communicating and building relationships, and I have drawn throughout my career on this, and I would say that's something maybe I got from my father. So in young years I was always somebody who could build relationships and have a lot of friends and become the class leader. The other thing is strong task orientation. So getting things done, being very ambitious, goal-oriented. And typically when you are very strongly on those two sides, then you are weaker on the attention to details and the emotional part. So when you're very task-oriented and somebody talks about the family issues, then your brain, but we still have this problem to solve. So over the years, I learned that actually this empathy part of listening also to. So today when I have a one-on-one with one of our talents, I always start talking about him and his family, and not the business comes at last. So I learned over the years to have really strong relationships at work where people go through fire for you is when you show interest in their personal life. And if I know somebody has a child who is not doing well, I'm the first one who says, take care of your family. And so I think that's actually being humane is something that developed over the years, which was not naturally initially. Initially it was just, I'm the hero, I'm successful. And as you evolve as a leader, you put yourself more back and you let your team shine and let your team get the glory, and you support your team as much as you can. So I would say this is the main shift over the years. And I can still recognize that some of our talents are similar to I was 10, 15 years ago, and sometimes I can relate to it, and I say, what you just did, I did as well, but let me tell you, there are better ways.
Mark, of course, you learn all of things and you add it to your skill sets, right? And it's not just you're going alone in this road. There must be so many people who has shaped you the way you are here now. And was there any let's just call it mentors, right? But it's a term that's very, sounds very, how do I say? But it's a very simple term. It can be anyone, right? So would you be able to name a couple of people that were along the way that shaped you who you are today?
So one was Mr. Schleret. So he was the big boss at this Mercedes dealership. And in the first 3 years of working in this dealership, he saw potential in me. He gave me books to read, and he was the one who gave me the opportunity to work at the German headquarters for Mercedes. So without his belief in my potential, I would not be where I am today. So he was a big supporter and mentor. And whenever I'm in Germany, I make it a point to meet him. Even 20 years, he's retired now, he doesn't work anymore, but we are still in contact. And if I cannot see him, then at least we talk. So these relationships you should always keep in life.
Amazing.
And the other mentor, I would say, and supporter, I would say, is my wife. Because we are very different, actually. So let me give you an example. Linking back to my personality. So when the last property that we wanted to buy, so my wife asked me, let's do together some research, which place. And I said, Natalie, you know, it's very painful for me to do this analysis, very detailed. This is not me, this is not my strength. But she comes from the finance side, she actually enjoys this.
It. Yeah.
So I said, we should utilize your strengths and you do the analysis. Okay, Mark. So then she analyzed left, right, and center, and then she said, okay, these are the 3 things I shortlisted. Okay, so then together we looked through them, and then eventually we selected one, and then she handed over to me when it came to the final negotiation. So now, Mark, that's your strength. And I think that is so true in your personal life, in business life. You should surround yourself with people who are actually different than you, than similar to you. I still see in our company sometimes younger managers hiring people who are exactly like them. But you don't grow and develop. It's just convenient to work with people who think the same, who talk the same. But you really make better decisions when you surround yourself with people who have different viewpoints and you are respectful of these viewpoints. And you collectively then work towards the goal.
Nice. So I wanted to, we were talking about Mercedes quite a lot, but can you talk about your experience, how it is, how many years you've been there, and the employee experience at Mercedes, and how is it different from the others? I'm sure. Yeah. So
at Mercedes or at MSM Mercedes?
At Mercedes in Germany.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, or Korea as well.
See, Mercedes has been around for over 150 years. So it's a company with a very strong brand value. And because it has this brand value, a lot is about reputation. And when you have over 300,000 employees, you cannot expect everybody will always do the right thing for the company. So you can imagine with such a big multinational global company, you have a lot of rules and regulations to protect the company value, to make sure everybody follows the procedures. So the DNA of the company, I would say, is very German in terms of engineering. So whatever they do, they want to do perfect. Yes, and quality first.
That's true.
We don't sell something unless it's really very, very reliable and good. And as an employee, so I started off on the service and parts side of things. And typically in these big companies, you stay in that path. You don't shift from after sales to sales. Once you are entering a path, you are an expert in that field, and yes, you can grow, but in that area. And that was one of the reasons why I left Mercedes and wanted to work for MSM, because at MSM I could still do Mercedes business, but I could do sales and after sales. And I learned, actually I'm not so bad in sales either, so I recognized new skills in me. So while you work for a big global company, the beauty is I worked for Mercedes in Korea, in America, in Germany. You can work in different places in the world. But you are not so flexible in getting into new business fields. You usually follow your path. Versus in a smaller family business, you're much more flexible. If you have certain skill sets, they can be used for many, many areas. Another thing is maybe Mercedes, if you do service, you don't get involved in the logistics of the spare parts. But in a family business, you look after the transportation, after the importation, after the sales, you have to kind of do everything. And that makes you also stronger as a leader, in my view, when you understand all the steps. But every person is different. So my wife works best in a very big multi-billion-dollar company because she's a very structured, organized person. Versus I'm a bit more the business and entrepreneur. I look for new opportunities. And so I would say where I am today fits actually perfectly to my personality. I can be flexible. I can come up with new ideas, and as long as the owner supports, then anything is possible. I would have not had this kind of flexibility at Mercedes, but I learned at Mercedes how to structure a business, how to organize things. So you can learn from everything, but I think it's important to find also the right, not just company culture, but the right fit in terms of how big is the company. And how can you best contribute? And you're most successful when you can use your skills. If you can use your skills, then you will have success. But sometimes also people are pushed in a position where they cannot use their strengths, and then it's not good for the company, not good for the employee.
Just a quick question. For almost 20 plus years, you've been overseas, not in Germany, right?
Yes.
So how do you feel about that? You miss your family. Of course, you visit them often, right? And how does it work in your terms?
Yeah, so I usually see my parents once a year. And I also see my younger brother and younger sister once a year.
Nice.
For them, Germany is home. That's where their friends are. They are not so interested what happens in the rest of the world. They are kind of very grounded there. And they live a very comfortable and happy life there. And for them, it's what I do. It's very strange for them, living so far away. But as you rightly said, so after so many years overseas, all my network, everything is here. So I can actually never imagine to ever live back in Germany. It's I've been too long away, and that's fine actually. I have no issue with this. So I will happily retire in Asia, and actually on this trip here now, my wife is with me and coming from Singapore. Big city. The moment we got out of the new airport, a little bit of snow, the cold air. She did like this. She really, embraced the beautiful nature, the different weather, and really. So for us, I believe we can make home almost anywhere. There are people where the glass is empty, where the glass is full. I guess I'm somebody, I make the glass full. I will find something positive anywhere. And yes.
Okay. To start a new topic on this journey, so we talked about the brands that MSM brings in. One of the most interesting one, I think, is BYD. Can you talk about how this happened and typically how it also happens, with these big brands? I think for Mongolians, it seems very far to be an importer or distributor, right? So how does these processes happen, and how did you decide on bringing BYD? And I know there's a lot of electric brands out there, so what was the...
Just adding one more thing on what TEMUULEN said. The legal-wise, right? So for MSM represents Mercedes here in Mongolia, and how does the legal stuff work here? Because BYD is another entity, right? And also on top of...
I start with this one actually. So in a professional business partnership, let's say you are my Mercedes business partner, and I start discussing with you, BYD. Before I sign anything with you, I will be transparent with you. So in that case, I traveled to Mercedes in Stuttgart, and I said, I see business opportunity for electric cars in Mongolia. Do you have a Mercedes electric car for me? And Mercedes back then said, dear Mark, our focus is Europe, America, and China, the big volume markets. You are at the bottom of the list. I said yes, but I still see the business opportunity as a business person. We need to, if I cannot get a product from you, would you allow me to work with a different company? And to be honest, actually, there are between BYD and Mercedes also some partnerships. So BYD was not new to Mercedes. And they basically said, no, they had 3 questions. Okay, Mark? Who will look after the BYD customers? Who will look after the Mercedes customers? Do you have a separate sales force? Do you have a separate service force? Do you have a separate showroom? So those were the 3 basically questions. And I said we will have a dedicated and different sales team and service team, and yes, we'll have a different showroom facility. And with these conditions met, Mercedes gave the written approval, go ahead and sign an agreement with BYD. But before it, and I would do, and I have done this for any other brand. We also did recently Ineos, a new off-road car, and also there I asked all our partners any concerns doing this, and as long as it's separated, it's usually fine. But before I came to the point of asking Mercedes for permission, I actually traveled to China because the electric boom kind of started there. And I looked who is the market leader. And then I went to their workshops. I talked with technicians, with a translator. What are the issues? To get a better feel of how reliable these cars are. And then I asked, can I do some test drive?
Sure.
So I personally checked the quality through the workshops. I test drove. And then I kind of concluded, okay, BYD is the right. And then we decided not just to bring immediately a lot of cars. We bought 1 car and I drove it out to Terelj. It was February, -40, and I left it outside. Stayed overnight, and I wanted to see whether it really works, because I said earlier, things that work well spread fast, but negative news also. So we wanted to make sure this really works. And only then we started to really roll it out and sell more. And today, when we also sell now Mercedes electric cars. And that process was very fast because we had the fast charge already. We had trained technicians. This was not something new. We were already quite experienced in that.
How's the market in Mongolia for electric vehicles?
So, see, whenever there is a fuel supply shortage and people queue up on the gas stations, then usually the interest in electric cars increases. I mean, I have to say, when you live and work in Ulaanbaatar, you are fine with a full electric car because you not drive more than 60 kilometers. In winter, the battery capacity is 60% less. So if you can go in summer, maybe 500 kilometers, in winter, maybe only 200. But 200 is still enough. But if you want to go to the countryside, there won't be never, I believe, the infrastructure where you can charge on the countryside. So there may be a hybrid, like that's why you also see Priuses in the countryside, is maybe a better solution. Electric cars are of similar price position like a conventional car now. Your running costs are 60 to 70% lower because you don't have fuel cost, and also your repair and maintenance is lower. Your tire wear is higher because the car is much heavier. So when you go through corners, so you need to change the tires more often. When you have an accident, an electric car repair is more expensive than a normal car. And I guess the biggest point is the battery degrades over time, depending whether you fast charge or slow charge all the time. the climate. So after 7-8 years, if you have to replace the battery, that's almost like buying a new car, because it's like 50% of the car cost. So I guess it's really something each customer, and we do this in our sales discussions as well, understand. So what is the purpose and so on. And then the customer should come to the conclusion, the electric car is good for me, or I rather go with a hybrid, or I go with a conventional car. And fast forward, I believe there will be also hydrogen coming as an alternative to full electric and hybrid. And we will see a mix. I don't think everybody gonna drive electric in 10 years. I also don't think everybody gonna be on hybrid or on hydrogen. Every customer has some different needs, and there will be different solutions available. And that's why we have different brands, and that's why we have different sales teams, so that a customer can get the best solution for its individual needs.
Nice. When you talk about international trends, you're saying in about 10 years you won't see this shift right away, right? But in how many years do you think we will be able to be sustainable in this renewable energy?
Are you talking about here in Mongolia?
No, internationally. I think Mongolia will be another 10 or 20 years, but just in the trend-wise.
So China, I believe, because it's the biggest automotive market in the world, 20 million new cars are sold every year there. They will be in the forefront of sustainable transportation or mobility. There is no turning back. They investing, and they have now sometimes an advantage over traditional car players, and I don't think they're gonna give this up by going back to old things. But it's also culturally, I think the Chinese are very adaptable. New things is part of life. Europeans are not so quick. You know, there is tradition, and change comes much slower. So I could imagine, that's also why the charging infrastructure is not developing so quickly in Europe. So Europe might be, even though it's kind of, when it comes to energy transition and so on, one of the most environmental friendly in the world. But when it comes to this mobility part, with the infrastructure requirements and the mindset of people, they might be falling a bit behind. And the same, I find, will most probably happen for the Americans. Americans like their big cars, and they like to drive long distances. So America and Europe most probably will still have a big portion of normal cars, gasoline, diesel cars, versus the emerging markets will be quite quick. So it could be that UB will be quite fast adapting actually more and more electric vehicles, maybe faster than Europe is. And this is always the struggle that we have, to convince a big company like Mercedes, release electric cars to us, how many units you're gonna sell. And this is really the challenge, to make our partners aware. In many aspects, Mongolia, yes, will never be a big market like the others, but we adapting things very, very quickly. And so I'm in a way an ambassador for Mongolia in the world. I travel and explain the opportunities, and things are progressing, and this is what we need.
I think our first half is ending, but I would like to ask a last question on the first half, which is the management of how the MSM has grown since 1998, right? As TEMUULEN was mentioning, from 180 employees to 600 employees right now.
But that's only in the last...
Only the last 6 years. It started off, I think, with 10 employees.
And as you've been mentioning, Marco, also, now the culture will be driving the success of the company as well. And how do you see and manage your employees at this moment?
So, first of all, the founders started it. And so it was the founders' DNA, culture that shaped the company. And I would say the founders were also realizing at a certain point, we have only run business in Mongolia. We have only run our own business. If we want to professionalize and get the company to the next level, we need to have a CEO who can put the structures in place and get the company to the next level. And so when I left the first time, my learning curve in Mongolia was kind of flattening. There was not so much more for me to learn. And then I worked for Volvo in Singapore, for Volvo in Indonesia, so running $300 million businesses with thousands of employees. So then coming back to Mongolia, I kind of told the owners, I can help to grow your business and professionalize it, but I need money. You need to give me money to invest into the growth. And so I had support by the owners, and they also provided funding for the growth. And over time, as they saw things were progressing even better than expected, the owners also more and more stepped back. And today I can say the board and the management of the company are totally separate. There is no such thing as one shareholder asking an employee change this and this and this. Everything, the management is held accountable to run the business in the best interest of the shareholders, and we have our profit targets and dividend targets and so on, but it's the management who needs to deliver. It's the management also who makes the decisions. And that, I think, has worked very well for us. And I am somebody who usually doesn't micromanage. If I micromanage, then there is a problem.
Your hands on.
And I would say, we define this culture in the company. We are customer focused. And when we do employee satisfaction surveys, it actually comes also through that people are proud to work for the company and are very customer focused. Then we do business in an ethical way. That's actually our number one in terms of employee satisfaction. Everybody feels proud we do things the right way. We have the continuous improvement part. So I always encourage, when you want to make the company better, I only see so much. Improvements should come from within, and there is some rewards given for employees who recognize what can be better, whether it's a process, whether it's a product, whether it's a customer complaint, where we learn from. And the other is teamwork. When you have a small company, it's fairly easy to manage, but when you have over 600 people, then it's normal that sometimes you have one department only looks after their things. And the success of the company really depends on also that different departments work together. Because look at our customers. They dig for gold. So they need some of our drilling equipment and so on. Then they strike gold. Then they buy the bottle of champagne from us. And eventually, as they dig more gold, they buy a nice car from us. So in a way, while we have 3 divisions, the circle closes. We always deal with similar customers. So therefore, we also need to have the mindset of taking care of the customer, regardless which division you are. And I'm also giving talents the opportunity to move from one division to another and grow with the company and learn new skills in a new industry.
Of course. TEMUULEN is an experienced CEO as well. I would like to ask you both, what are the setbacks? I assume there are, for even Mongolian CEO, right? It's very hard, difficult to, gather the team together and make it as a one unit. But for you, what were the biggest setbacks also for uniting the team and making it vision solo? What do you mean?
One goal oriented.
One goal oriented, yeah.
You want to start?
No. We'll let the more seasoned one go first. I'll go off your point.
I think, to be honest with you, and that maybe sounds a bit hard, but not everybody embraces change and not everybody is on board with where you want to go. And the setback is always if you have one who holds everybody else back. So you have to remove. Even sometimes it might be a good performer and you don't want to lose that person, but if that person gathers the whole team against, no, we only look after our things, then you also need to be consequent in your decision and say, no, sorry, you have the wrong attitude, even so your results are good, but your behavior is against where the company wants to go. There is no place for you anymore. So that's the tough part of leadership, but that's, I would say, usually the biggest hurdle. Not everybody is convinced and it takes time for people to see the benefits, but you will always have actually some who will actively work against it, and this one you have to remove. Recognize and then take the tough decisions.
What about you?
Yeah, I would agree. Bad apple is something that you just have to get out right away. Another thing I found was in the previous company, transitioning from about 20 employees to 500 employees. I think that's where the organizational change that happens and the systems you have to put in place, a lot of people do not understand it, because in the startup business, everyone has one goal, to make the company better, and you can reach out to every single individual. So then everyone is not performing based on system, they're performing on the heart they have for the company, right? And then when you transition into 500 people, that's when you start to have procedures and systems in place, and the processes get longer. So then the people who were there at the beginning start to think it's going against them. So that's when I found we lose a lot of valuable assets just because of the mindset and that transition that happened. So I think that was one of the most difficult things I had to face was everyone had the same goal, but when you have 600 people, they're not going to be on the same goal. Some people have personal goals just to improve their career in about 2 years and leave, right? So that's when you have to really identify, and it goes back to the bad apple. You have to find those. Yeah. So that.
But just to add to this one, so one of my weaknesses is very detailed, very processed. So I always rather, whatever it takes to keep the customer happy, but you can't do that when you get bigger. And that's why it's important that you have in your management team people who are very process oriented and who can help compensate for this and put systems in place so that the bigger you get, you don't firefight issues, but things are automatically. And so sometimes in management meetings, I was told, Mark, the data we have in our ERP system are shit. As long as we have shit information, we cannot make good business decisions. So don't ask us to use more the system, because I said the system is not utilized. We spend so much money on the system, but we're not utilizing it. Yeah, because the data are wrong. So then, you know how to fix this. You become the project lead, and then we put the IT people together, the department heads, and then let's fix this together. And I think naturally, the bigger you get, the more policies, the more freedom is taken away. But you also need it, as you rightly say. Otherwise, things cannot run as smooth.
One last question before we go to the second part. There's going to be a lot of people watching who are going to be interested in MSM, maybe even joining MSM, right? So when you hire your talents, I'm sure you don't have this long procedure of interviews for yourself. What's the key things you look for when you hire your talent?
So I would say, because the talent pool is limited, we cannot always get people who have all the experience and skills what we look for. So therefore, if I see a younger employee who has a very good attitude towards learning quickly, being adaptable to us, I think that's a key part. I think having high standards of ethics and doing things the right way is a must. the whole company works ethically. So if you are not ethical, then you don't fit into our organization. We walk away from business if it's wrong. We have a reputation to protect. And to be honest, we have really great people in the company, and we have also this referral program. When you bring somebody you know into our company, we'll pay you some bonus. And this has worked also very, very well, because people that fit very well to our culture, they also know within their friend circle who fits. And I think that's very important, because the cultural things are not negotiable. And what I usually do is to help younger employees is I'll take them along to overseas business trips. So when we meet one of our big partners, I bring younger team members with me to observe, because the discussions with customers locally are very different than when you talk with the big boys overseas. You need to be very prepared. You need to know where to push. So being very strategic. And I think when then those younger employees eventually learn and eventually lead this discussion themselves without me, then I feel so happy. I feel so proud, right? So it goes both ways. It's a win-win for the company and for the employee when there is alignment on development and aligning with what the company stands for.
Awesome. And now we're transitioning into our second half of our podcast, which is work-life balance, Mark. And it's a big concept, and I wanted to hear your opinion on the concept. What do you think of that? Work-life balance.
Yeah. There's a lot to say about this. So first of all, I'm quite dedicated to what we do. And some of our customers run 24/7 operation. And if there is an issue, then regardless whether it's in the middle of the night or on Sunday, you need to pay attention and need to act. So, and for me, that's just part of taking care of your customer, to be always available. Then, of course, there is the kind of more European concept that people have a private life and you should respect it and you should not disturb on a weekend. And I think I'm trying to find a middle way. So I will not disturb anybody on the weekend unless it's absolutely necessary. I also try, even if I write an email 10 o'clock at night, I do not expect an answer straight away. It's okay if I just want to get it out of my system, and then you can respond the next day. So I am, I guess, quite demanding. When I want something, then I usually want it quite quick and accurately. But on the other hand, I am mindful. I mentioned earlier, if I know somebody has some family matters at home, etc., then I'll get somebody else, and I will not disturb and let the person have that time with the family. And it's easier said than done to find work-life balance, because your mind always thinks about something. So to take your mind fully off work is not something that can be done instantly. You really need some time or some special way to get your mind off work. So my special way in a short period of time is ballroom dancing.
Oh, wow.
Because number one, when I have my wife in my arm, I'm happy, right? But listening to the beat, remembering the steps, and leading. Men are usually not good in micromanaging, or not very good in multitasking. So doing three things at the same time, as you do when you dance, then there is no brain space left for work. So I can really say 1 or 2 hours of dance are 1 or 2 hours where I don't think about work at all. The phone is away, there is no call, there is no email whatsoever. It's just me, my wife, and the music and the dance. And the beauty about dance is also you can do it also when you get older. So even as long as I can walk, with 80 I can still dance. So that is kind of my way of getting out of the, let's say, work mode. The fact also that I'm not always in Mongolia, I think helps me to step back and to look at things from the distance. Is the tool ship still moving in the right direction? Do we need to do some adjustments? And that's easier from the distance than when you are right into it. Yeah. Everybody want to talk with you, everybody wants something. So you become so caught up. And I'm also not an ego guy. You know, everybody coming, oh, boss, do you have time? Some people love this, but I think best is when things kind of run without your constant involvement. Awesome. And the other thing I would say is being in nature. I believe when you listen to the wind, when your eyes look far, you know, that's really something that helps you to also wind down. And I can honestly say there was a time when I worked first time at MSM. Maybe I was a perfectionist and I was not so experienced yet. There were so many customer complaints and so many issues. It's many years back. It's like 15 years back. But it was like a cloud hanging over me. And it felt very strange. And I never had this before. And then I remember I went out to Terelj and stayed there for 5 days. Then came back and I felt better. And it never happened again after that. I'm a quite cheerful person. So I'm usually never get depressed or extremely stressed. But many years back that happened one time, and back then also it helped to be in the countryside, and so yeah, I think those are my 2 ways of releasing stress and coping with managing work and life, but then at the same time, like in the alcohol business, most bars run in the evening, right? So it's not something where you say I work from 8 to 6. You know, it doesn't exist really. You sometimes work on the weekend. You sometimes work at night, and it's doesn't really trouble me or bother me. And honestly, nobody looks really how much hours you put into something. Most of the time, what matters most is what's the end result. Sometimes if you are bloody efficient and you can get something done in a very short period of time and you take the rest of the day off, that's fine. Of course.
Can you discuss what's your typical day like, an average day in Mongolia when you come?
Yeah. So typically I would get up quite early. Early I consider 6:30. The alarm clock rings, and the next 2 seconds I'm out of bed. So I'm like, ping, yeah, I'm going from 100 to 0.
Like a Mercedes.
Then have a breakfast, and then I would try to be the first one in the office before people come to clear some work, clear some emails. And then often the day goes through with a lot of meeting either customers, meeting team members one-on-one or as a group. And then often in the evening there is a dinner with a group or with customers again. Then I try to call my kids before they go to bed. So usually my kids go 8 o'clock to bed. So I have a short discussion with the children, which is usually 7 to 8, something like this. And then I would have my business dinner, let's say until 10, latest 10:30, regardless how fun the evening is, but 10:30 usually I say thank you and then leave, go home and sleep to be ready for the next day. So the days are quite, I would say, for an ordinary person maybe crazy busy, but I'm just trying to find as much time as possible with customers, with employees, individually or as a group, and I actually draw energy from that. As much as I enjoy our conversation, I do enjoy sitting with customers, listening, talking. So that's something I really enjoy, but there comes then a time at 10:30 at night where I don't need to talk anymore and where I'm happy to just be quiet and take a shower and sleep.
And your family is located here or in Singapore?
In Singapore, in Singapore. So
And how do you
Natalie used to be with me here.
Okay.
So the first years of our relationship, we were in Mongolia, and I would say she's not just my wife, she's also the mother of our children and also my best friend. And I would say, while we have such a great relationship because of our time in Mongolia. Because in winter you don't go out so much and you spend more time at home and you talk a lot and you have a drink together.
Dance together.
Yes. So I would really say our time together in Mongolia fostered a very, very strong relationship, very strong foundation. Only later when we started family, then Natalie said she would like to go back to Singapore to give the kids, I guess, a stronger friend circle, because in a local school you get friends for life. When you live in another country, people come and go, international school, etc.
I like how Mark shared his free time and recharging himself, because there's like two very important concepts, which is disconnecting and reconnecting, right? So disconnecting is what Mark does. He dances. He goes to a dance club and dances with his wife, right? And he disconnects from everything, from all this busy work, and then reconnect in nature and feel himself as part of it, you know. And I truly admire that. And Tem is also really likes to recharge himself in the nature. Yeah, and I wanted to. I'm curious about your personal goals in the next 5 years. What do you want to achieve personally, not just professionally, but personally? I want to, can be anything, can be skydiving, whatever.
So I have to admit that before we had children, life was all about work. So that was my life. And it took me quite a while to realize you have to take care of business, but also you have to take care of family. And I'm really happy that I have this opportunity to be with family in Singapore, but still run the business here and do both. And it is beneficial for the business, but it was also, I have to admit, for the owners initially, what? We hired you to run the business here. You want to spend half your time away. But it has worked out well. The company continues to do well because I put a strong management team in place, but it allowed me also to take care of family. And I think that's something as a personal goal. I just don't want to regret when the kids are older. And when kids are young, they want to spend a lot of time with you. When they get older, then leave me alone. It's not cool to be seen with you. You know that you don't have regrets later in your life. So as parents anyway, you try your best, and sometimes children still will not appreciate and be happy with you anyway. But I think as a personal goal, trying to be a good father to the children. Not that they say, you loved your work more than us. That would be very painful if they would say that. For myself, other than that, I'm not sure how you feel about it, but when you you have a busy job, and you have young children. There is not much time left for anything else.
You can get better in your dancing, you know.
Yes. And I guess just then keep the good relationship with the wife also. So
that's very important. Yeah.
So I'm happy she's this time here with me. So then we left the children in Singapore, and that's also good. Then it's couple time again, and I think also that is important to have.
Absolutely. Is your wife's name Natalie, right?
Yes, that's right.
Mark and Natalie, have you guys been around Mongolia a lot or no?
Oh, yeah. So I tell you a very funny story. Yeah. So we flew to Ulgi, and then we stayed with a local family, and then the local family asked Natalie, would you like to milk the cow?
Oh, right.
And then she started, and I could see the pain the cow had, like, oh! So then the local family kind of helped her. Eventually she got some milk out. Yeah. But I still remember we also went to Lake Hoof School, and we hiked a mountain, and then we saw the sunrise over the lake, and it's still something I'll never forget in my life. We also drove together with a Mercedes truck from UB to OT and back, and got stuck in a snowstorm. And so we have a couple of adventures we have done together, and it's really part of life, a very special part of life.
Those moments.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Do you make it a task? Like I've heard some couples put out like 2 weeks in a year just to be together on a trip, or do you have something like that, or does it just happen?
So Natalie also works for a big Temasek invested company. So she is also in senior management. So she is quite busy. I am quite busy, and we try to dedicate every time we have for the children. Taking 4 or 5 days, just her and me, happens maybe once a year. A weekend together without the children happens maybe 2, 3 times a year. And that's as much as we can do at the moment. Natalie, when the second child was born, stopped working. And while she enjoyed not having work stress, she also missed the mental stimulation. So for her, she rather works and has, because it's also about identity. Are you only a mother, or are you also? Yes. So, and I think I just support her. If she wants to work, that's fine. If not, then that's also. But in general, both of us have a quite busy life. I fly once, twice a month, so here to other business partners. But for us, it works. Traditionally, I think, like my parents think we are totally crazy. Why do you work so hard? And why both of you? You cannot both chase your career and raise 3 children. You are crazy. But I think in today's world, I think everybody needs to make their own decisions how to do this. They go to good schools in Singapore, and we do have some helpers at home that help with the housework and so on. And for us, I would say it works.
Mm-hmm. When you say you like to go out to the nature, is it more to just go out and go to a resort, or do you take an off-road vehicle and go camping?
Yeah, so
nice question.
Yeah.
So Natalie and I like to really hike a mountain, be in the middle of nowhere. But Natalie does enjoy her comfortable place at night then. So yes, go out in the wilderness, but still have a nice place to stay overnight. That being said, at the beginning of our relationship, we always went to some gear camp, and I would need to get up in the middle of the night and keep firing the oven and to stay warm. And it's also kind of looking after. And you have no TV, so just a glass of wine, and you talk. It's wonderful.
Okay. When we talk about work-life balance, how do you enforce it to your employees?
So obviously, I think mental health is something that is totally underestimated. There are many who suffer on depression and so on. So at MSM, we set up a program where anonymously employees who want to talk with a psychologist, their company pays for 3 sessions. And obviously not everybody utilizes it, but we have, I think 10-15% of the company has utilized the program. So we're trying to offer assistance in that regard. And I do expect throughout the organization that people managers have regular one-on-one with their employees, one-on-one maybe with key talents within their team and with the whole team, so that they recognize also where issues are and manage this. And of course, I mean, like in any organization, some do this better, some do this worse, but we try what we can to assist. Sometimes some employees have family members who suffer on cancer. There is, of course, a company health insurance and so on. But sometimes if certain things are not covered, then also within the company, people pool money together and support. So that kind of sense of belonging and sharing is quite strong. In terms of working remotely, half of our staff are technicians, so technicians cannot work remote. They have to be on the site. Sometimes we do get requests, can I not work from home rather than coming to the office? And we don't really have a policy on this. It's on a case-by-case basis where the department head then makes a decision. If a sales guy has a customer visit, instead of coming to the office and then seeing the customer, and the customer is nearby, then of course that makes sense. My experience during COVID has been the senior management has worked even harder. But there were also some who abused the system and did not do much. So I think the lower you go in the ranks, the more people are not fully taking their duty seriously, and where you need a bit more control. That has been our experience. But also I think in general, when you work remotely, you try to solve too many things by email or by messages. And sometimes you just need to get all people together, talk, finish, and move on. So sometimes efficiency is actually higher doing things in person.
For sure. Okay. Yeah, I think our podcast is coming to an end, right? Before then, I wanted to, this is a little bit, it might be a bit off topic, but this was a question I was talking to Bimba as well. I wanted to ask, as the CEO of MSM Group, which is bringing in quite a lot of brand vehicles in, what's your daily go-to ride or vehicle?
Oh, so actually...
Be very careful though.
No, so I usually try to move things around. So we have many brands, and I try to drive different brands and different models. And while I have a driver, sometimes I also want to see myself and drive. So there is no particular model or brand that I use. Also, it depends on the occasion. If we have some visitors, I need a bigger car. Yeah. If it's just myself, I take a smaller car. And it's good that we have that choices.
Mark is very diplomatic. Very diplomatic answer. But let's say from the Mercedes classes, which one is your go-to vehicle?
So to be honest, I don't mind speeding. So if it's summer, the SLS or GT is something with the roaring V8 engine where you just fly over the road, is something makes my heart beat faster. Going to the countryside, obviously I love taking a G-Class. If I have visitors and we need a bit more space and comfortable, then I think the GL is a car I really like.
Yeah, GL is also nice, huh?
Yeah, so the good thing is you have choices in each brand. but you know, sometimes when it's extreme off-road, very remote mine site, I would most probably take either a Ford Ranger or a Ford Expedition, something like that.
Ford Rangers.
I test drive the BYD Han, right?
Mhm.
The sedan.
Yeah.
It is an experience when you actually just speed. It is something. And our podcast is coming to an end. And thanks, Mark, for for joining us and sharing your insights with us. And thank you.
No, thank you. Pleasure. Enjoyed this conversation very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, guys. Subscribe, like, comment. Yeah, we want comments as well. So feel free to comment. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Please do.
Okay. Good. Thank you, guys.